trying to connect.
This meeting is being recorded.
Well, thank you for letting me know that. Yes. All right. I will need someone to speak up when I show this. Give me just a second to make sure that you guys can hear it and hear me rather. Let me just see here real quick. All right, and
You're muted, Lance.
yep, okay. And we'll try this again. Sorry about this here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me now?
Yep.
All right, all right. Can you guys see this?
Leadership equipping workshop.
Yep, yep. You guys can see it?
Yep.
We're off to the races. All right. Again, Zoom's acting kind of weird. I do appreciate your guys' flexibility, and we'll get rocking and rolling. If something comes up, let me know. All right, a leadership equipping workshop. Thank you for joining and owning your own development. Appreciate that a whole lot. And we're gonna get rocking and rolling. And I may check in to make sure you guys can hear me just right, because again, I'm getting some odd behavior with Zoom here. It just keeps like disconnecting, reconnecting, but here we go. All right, so first and foremost, I'm gonna ask the question here. We did a little thing with a report card. I sent that out, last week, I think 2 Mondays back now. Preemptively, I sent out a report card. It was a tool I've used in a previous life. Worked well then and thought it would work well for us here at Innovative Heights. I sent that out to anybody who would like to use it. And I know, Hannah, you've been using it at your park for a little while. If you don't mind just kind of sharing how that's worked for you, just some initial feedback, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think we started using it this past Saturday or Sunday. But I mean, it's just a really good accountability tool. It keeps it from me being the only one who's fussing at my team members, like, hey, about their closes and things like that. I think it kind of feels good, and it's important for, assistant managers to be able to let one another know, hey, this wasn't done too well, or hey, this was. So yeah, every night, we complete the report card, and then in the morning, the system that we kind of have is the opening manager will send a picture to just the closing manager, letting them know what they did great and what they may need to go over again next time. But since we've been using them, our closes are phenomenal. It's made such a huge difference. It gets those little areas that sometimes you might not remember to get. So it's also just a really good little tool for reminding yourself of every area of the park. So 5 out of 5 stars from Murfreesboro.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, it's never against making lists, and no matter how long you've been doing something, no matter, how great of a leader you've become over the years, going back to a list, because again, we need those reminders. The day gets away from us, the business gets away from us, and it just kind of keeps us honest. And it's a thorough way to kind of come at it and come at it consistently. So appreciate that share for sure.
Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.
Very cool. So there you go. 5 out of 5 there from Hannah and the Murph team. Get to using it, guys. If you're not already, please get to using it, because you got nothing to lose, it sounds like. So thank you. All right, here we go, guys. We're gonna dive right in, but before we get there, we're talking about 4 different numbers here right off the hop. 83%, 5%, 20%, and 10%. If you're on the GM call on Tuesday, I mentioned the first two numbers. And I mentioned actually those two numbers on the last call too, just the same. If you haven't had a chance to actually watch that first call, it is recorded. It's available to you. It's kind of a prerequisite, but if you're already here and you didn't watch it, totally fine. But please do. We set a lot of foundation for this call and the future calls in that first call. So please do go back and watch it. So 83%. This stat came from a Gallup poll that was done last year. 100 plus organizations in different industries, thousands of people were polled, and of what they actually got from this survey that was done was that 83% of organizations believe it's important to develop leaders at every level of the company. So every level of their company, 83% of organizations believe that it's important. That's a huge number. That's a huge stat. And what's really interesting is those same groups were polled sometime later, and well, 5% of those businesses had implemented leadership development at all levels. It's just a staggering statistic across the board, 83% versus 5%. It tells me a lot. I'm thankful that we're in that 5%, but it's an everyday pressing that we don't become the 83%. Because one of my suspicions as to why there's an 83% to 5% is that 83% believe conceptually that we need something like that in place. They need something like that in place. It's an important tool. It's an important piece of the puzzle to every level of the company. And yet only 5% are actually doing something about it. And that's a huge chasm, so to speak, between the 83 to the 5. And I'm thankful to be the 5%. But one of the many objectives we have, I will normally list out 3 objectives. The third one will almost always be give you something to work with and bring back to the park with you. Because if it's just concept, if I'm just giving you information and there's no actual practical application for that information, well, there can't be any leadership transformation, period. So you need to have more than just information and conceptual understandings and just leadership theory, but a way to put it into practice every single day. Or we move from that 5% to the 83%. And so we're going to continue to just address that as we go through this. I also think these stats exist for this reason as well. Those same individuals were polled about this particular area of the business when it comes to leadership. 20% they believe that 20% of any group, say a group of 60, a group of 100, shows some quality of basic managerial talent that can be cultivated into high quality leadership. And so, you have a group of 100, you believe that 20% of the 100 are going to actually become something down the road as far as high quality leadership goes, as long as they have the right tools and the training and whatnot, right? But they at least come through the door, basic managerial talent. And then, of course, we've all heard the term natural born leader, and that would be the 10% of people are natural leaders. Now, I'm not here to say whether that 20% or that 10% is just and true. I'm just going off what the stats showed last year with this Gallup poll. I do believe, though, if an organization believes that 83% of organizations believe that we need to develop leaders at every level of the company that they're a part of, and the key thing there is every level, but yet you only believe 20% could be shown leadership, 10% are natural leaders. Well, that's 30%. You're never going to get to every level of the company. How would you? You don't even believe that you can, because you think that 30% of your team actually has leadership. So there you go. There's 4 numbers, and we can cut that a few different ways. We can come at that a few different ways. But I wanted to put those out there for you. And the first 2, again, staggering, 83% and 5%. Also, don't get caught up in the 20 or the 10 and find yourself sitting there going, am I a natural leader, or am I one who shows basic managerial talent? Listen, you're on this call for a reason, so kudos to you. But all in all, we're going to press and we're going to push to really get everybody in our organization at some level to become a leader, because leader of self is the first step for every team member in our organization. It may be not today, but it will be down the road. All right. And so that is leadership is reproduction. This was from the last time we got together. Leaders lead, followers follow. Old model, one leader, a bunch of followers. and it's worked for a long time. And yet we're probably more in the middle now with leaders reproducing themselves, different levels of intensity around what that leader can do or can't do within the organization, but that's all right. They have different expectations, accountabilities, and that's kind of the model, right? 30% versus the 70% just sort of following along. And like I said, the future though is when leader of self is part of the plan. Everyone must lead within the organization at their level. Now, if I just told you that and said everyone has to be a leader, everybody would kind of be running in whatever direction they want. It would be a lot like herding cats at freestyle court, right? It's quite a sight to be seen. You're not going to be able to herd cats. Nonetheless, though, everyone needs to become a leader of self, and that has to be part of the plan. And it's so important as we're bringing people on. You know, we come in with certain assumptions. We bring them on, new team members, and it's hard just to get them to show up for their first shift. And leave it to be that we never thought that that was our responsibility to show them how to show up for work, be accountable, resolve conflict, communicate properly. And yet that's where we find ourselves. And it just is. So we need to kind of keep that front and center. How do we develop people at the ground level to become leaders of themselves first and foremost, or they'll never have a future with us or anywhere else for that matter, because they need to become a leader of self first and foremost. All right. Awesome. So that's all precursor, some review as well. I just want to kind of remind you guys ways to grow, and I'll hit these things really fast. Be vulnerable on this call. At every level of leadership, listen, Bron is the owner of Innovative Heights, and it comes with a great deal of vulnerability. Who else would put all the money and the time and the energy and getting on and off planes and really just opening these locations and hiring all of us? Who would do that if they weren't willing to be vulnerable? And so it's vulnerable. It's vulnerable to be an owner. It's vulnerable to be a team member. Vulnerability is across the folds. And so I would just ask you guys, when we're vulnerable, we're teachable. You have to be willing to make the mistakes. And I'm looking to create an environment where that's every bit possible, where you can make those mistakes and it be a teaching environment. The next thing is take down the I know that filter. I use that expression a lot. Take down that I know that filter is something I've used in my prior life. It's been used with me, different mentors in my walk have shown this to me. And basically it's a silent disqualifier. It's when you have, you've heard something and maybe you've heard it a million times and you kind of arrive at the conclusion, oh, I know that. I've heard that before. And in some way you sort of just kind of, you block it out. You kind of lower it, like, I don't really hear it. You kind of half listen. I would just recommend that you don't do that on this call, if only because you may have heard something 100 times, but it may be that next time that you just catch an edge of it that you've never caught before, and it transforms you as a leader. It's happened to me before. So again, try to take down that I know that filter. It's like a magnifying glass outside when it's sunny. It catches the sun just right, and it can cause a fire. It's the same idea, okay? Actively engage. You're only going to get what you put into it, guys. At the very least, if you just show up, you will get to know people better within the organization. You'll get to know some names and faces when cameras are on, of course, but you'll at least get to hear some voices of people that you will have, get to know now and in the future. But I hope you engage. You will get something from it. I promise you'll be transformed as a leader if you engage. And then reach out. It's the last thing on here, but it's not the least of all. Reach out, please. I'm making myself available. I may not be your regional. That's totally fine. I will make myself available for you. If you cross a boundary with my time, whatnot, I'll let you know. Chances are you won't, but reach out and really own your development beyond the call even. All right. Any questions? You guys are too good. You're too good. All right. Objectives for today, guys. We're going to run through this. We're building the house. We've dug out that basement and we are working our way through. We're going to define spheres today. We are defining spheres. More on that in just a moment. Level setting, also known as calibration. We're going to calibrate here. We're going to level set. And then the last thing on here, guys, give you something you can use today. I talked about at the top of the call. It was the same point in the same spot last call, and it will be in the future. I can guarantee you that, because again, we're fighting against it just being leadership theory with no application, and there has to be a way to apply this to your day today. Going from there, guys, I'm going to ask the question and give you an opportunity to really dive in and give your thoughts in the chat box. And here we go. I don't think this came up on the last call, funny enough, but what is leadership? What is leadership? Feel free to unmute yourself and say what you think leadership is, or even add your voice in the chat box. That's fine as well. All right, we adding our voice here. Excellent. Can you guys hear?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about what I think leadership is.
Excellent. I had to step away for a moment to let the game guy in. So I was giving you guys a moment to add your voice while I got the door open for him. So here at a park. All right.
I think in simple terms, being a leader is just influencing and guiding a group of people and just helping them grow, whether that's, part of an organization or a business. It's just, being that good influence and that guiding, step for people.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's great. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a vast topic. It's vast. Depending on the context in which we're doing leadership, it's a vast topic. Well, let's look at it here. Here's a leadership cloud. It's everything from management to belief, development, power, skill, functionality, development, influence, authority, goal setting, right? We could go on and on and on. And so with that being said, for these calls, I'd like us to kind of look at that again as what is leadership? And if we could begin to define leadership, at least again, in the context of these calls, as kind of frame leadership around this expression, I think it would do us a lot of good. And Hannah, you hit a lot of it on the nail on the head, so to speak. If we could look at leadership largely as seeing the potential in others and reducing the barriers to them reaching it. Now, when you read that, seeing the potential in others and reducing the barriers to them reaching that potential, that can look like a lot of things. I gave some leadership dynamics in our last call, that you can't give what you don't have, right? And so you have to go out and receive it so you can give it. If you don't have $10 and I come to you and say, hey, can you give me 10 bucks? Obviously, I'm unable to do that. So unless I borrow it or make it or whatever, right? I have to get that $10. It's a silly example, but it's just the same. It's seeing the potential in others and reducing the barriers to them reaching it in whatever way you need to do that. So when I say that, and when I give that as the expression to what leadership is and define it as such, what does that do for you? Does that cause anxiety, excitement? What is the initial reaction when you read leadership framed that way?
I don't think it gives me anxiety. Actually, I don't really know. I know it doesn't give me anxiety, but I don't know how I feel about it.
Encouraged?
Yeah, encouraged, motivated. Yeah.
Challenged?
Yeah, for sure.
I know I'm putting the words in your mouth there, but thank you.
Honestly, I couldn't find the words, so thank you for helping me out.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Good deal. So again, see it through that. Frame it. Seeing the potential in others and reducing the barriers to them reaching it. Puts ownership, right? There's ownership. People under your leadership, they don't know what they don't know. But as a leader, you're casting vision maybe for them and their future here. And whether it's here or it's wherever they're going to end up, for right now, they're playing a part of your success or the failures of your park, right? And where you have opportunities. And so they're part of your fold. They're in the fold with you. And so it's seeing their potential and then reducing the barriers to them reaching that potential. All right, so we'll frame it that way and we'll move on from there. So we're going to talk about something that is actually undergirding everything we do, and we don't necessarily have words for it, but we do this all the time. And these two expressions are used in everywhere from government to business for sure. We're going to use it more or less in the context of leadership. So I'm going to adopt these phrases for that and then define them as such. We're going to talk about sphere of authority. Authority not being a bad word. It's a good thing. Sphere of authority, and then also sphere of influence. And yes, you can do both of these at any given time. We do them all the time together. We blend them. But at the end of the day, we also can be in that sphere of authority and we can be within that sphere of influence. And so I'll define this for you a little bit and work from there. So when you think authority, what do you think of? Feel free to just add it in the chat box. What do you think of when you think authority?
I was gonna say it kind of reminds me of taking leadership or like taking charge of something.
Yeah. But do you think of anyone in particular? Thank you, Jonathan. But do you think of anyone in particular? Because like I think of like I'm gonna call the authorities. Got some rebel rousers. It's glow night. I'm gonna call the authorities, right? Kind of bring it in the context of Sky Zone. But when you think of that, like authorities or authority, I think of, well, let me give you an example here. A badge, right? They have the authority to do something. One example. I also think being able to sign on the bottom line, right? I have the authority. Sometimes it's given over to me. Sometimes I just have it innately to maybe sign for something, right? They have the authority. They can make the executive decision. But I also think of each and every one of you, including myself, right? So this is Sky Zone, Shelby Township. Tyler just came back from being away at college, came back to be a part of the team as an AM there. He had been one in the past. He's back with us. And yeah, within Tyler, assistant manager, Shelby Township, is a certain range of authority that he carries, which was not given to him because he has assistant manager on his name tag. It's not magic, right? But he knows that's his role, and within his role, he has an idea of what that means, right? And he carries it out every single day as a manager when he's working. So let's think about influence. What do you think about when you think of influence? Feel free to add that to the chat as well. Right off the hop, I think this is your favorite athlete, Cody, right? Tom Brady?
Yep.
Of course, he's a leader on the field and whatnot, but as an influencer, you can think of any sports star, right? The guy who's selling a bunch of Nikes, whatever it may be. I don't know what he's with. If he's with Nike, Reebok, I don't know. What's he with, Cody?
He's with a multitude of different brands.
Multitudes, right? He's making lots of money. Some of these guys are making more money on all that versus even playing the sport, right? And they're still making obviously great money playing the sport. And so one of many examples growing up for me, it would have been like a Michael Jordan. The guy was making lots of money, still is, you know, retired in 2003. It's 2022. The guy's still making a lot of money off his Nike deals and so on and so forth. So I think sports stars, but also in our present day, I think influencers. I think of that 10-year-old who has a YouTube channel and is making millions of dollars. And I think, how in the world are they making millions of dollars on YouTube? And you got this 10-year-old doing that. And I know of them because I have a 12, 10, and 8-year-old, and they watch some of this stuff and they end up wanting to buy this toy or that toy because of, you guessed it, some YouTuber who's an influencer, right? I also think, though, of team members. They greatly influence our business every single day. And as a leader, if we're not showing them where they influence and how they influence, well, guys, we need to. They influence a great deal of the way our business goes, both up or down on any given day. And so, again, I think of our team members, and this is Jonah out at Sky Zone Shelby Township. So to define sphere of authority, this is my definition as it pertains to what we're doing. And again, we got our little guys at the bottom there. Everybody has a range of leadership kind of going through them. Some are deep blue. They've been doing this for a while. Some just have a little bit of blue, but there's influence happening across the ranks and across the team. Sphere of authority are areas where you have the final or near final say. You are part of the decision-making process. It impacts people, places, and things. Authority is responsibility. Ironically enough, responsibility is not always authority. You can just have responsibility, but not really have the authority there. But all of authority should carry responsibility with it as well. Next up, sphere of influence. These are areas where, although you may not have the final say, your words, your actions, behaviors, reactions, belief patterns can alter, change, or transform a person, place, or thing. Influence is powerful. Amazingly enough, with influence, it's not even tied into a title or position. It's just you being you. You can open your mouth, you can commit to a certain action, and it bring about influence in a way that you never would even thought. So influence is powerful, and it's not always tied to position. Rarely actually is it tied to position. It's just tied to the space in which you're taking up, the words you're saying, the behaviors, so on and so forth. All right, so any questions about sphere of influence or sphere of authority? It's new terminology. But let me just tell you, with sphere of influence, sphere of authority, a vast majority of our workplace woes actually comes down to there not being defined boundaries around these two areas. If you think about it, it's individuals who like worked outside of their area of influence and they actually started taking some sort of authority over an area, right? They made a decision where really they were positioned to have influence, but they took the time to actually have a measure of authority in that area, and it was wrong, and they did that. Or people who are actually in a point of authority, and instead of actually taking ground in that area and making a decision, they instead had somebody else make that decision, or they themselves reduced it to maybe an area of influence where really they just needed to make a call. I give this example, and I've given this example a few times over, and I'm sure you guys have examples just like this. A great example is to bring it down into our world of Sky Zone and what we do every day. I had a great manager working for me some years ago in a park, and I mean, he was just a tremendous manager. And like anybody else, we have our good days, we have our off days, and on this particular day, on that MOD shift, we had a double bounce injury at a Sky Slam, right? Two guys were out there, they were jumping, they were actually little ones. It was a little boy, a little girl, and we had an aerial attraction. We had a tower right next to the Sky Slam. So we see the double bounce on the video, and like any good leader, any good management team, we roll back the video to see pretty much sort of the anatomy of the accident. How did things happen within that accident to get us to that point, right? Were there things that we could have done differently? Again, you're breaking it down. And we were doing that. So interesting enough, just a minute or so before that, they were still doing the double bouncing. And we were kind of in that CAV model. It was weekday traffic, the hours, the traffic allowed for that. And the court monitor was, I wouldn't say overwhelmed, but they were dealing with the aerial attractions, pulling back the trapeze, swing, you name it, and should have had a little bit of a better vantage point, a little bit of a better view. But what really surprised me was actually about 30 seconds before the injury, the manager, who's this great manager, had walked right past on his way to, he was just thinking, I got to get to that court monitor to tell him or her something. And he did just that. He went, he told him or her whatever it was he needed to. He walked right past, again, the two jumpers in the same area, that long trampoline at Sky Slam. And don't you know, 30 seconds later, double bounce, injured kid. And we watched it all in video. And I see this manager walk one way and walk back the other way. And he's sitting next to me when it's happening, not even realizing he was even a part of that situation 30 seconds prior and could have made a change, made a difference. And his jaw just about dropped. He had a moment of realization. Here was an area of authority that he let up on. And as I say all the time, he walked past a fallen standard. That became the new standard. And in this case, there was consequences. So this stuff happens all the time. I asked him, hey, what happened there? Again, we make mistakes. We all do. I do. And he said, Lance, I had corrected them earlier at the freestyle court, and it adjusted itself after I sort of kind of nudged them in the right direction. And so in some way he had believed, he had made an assumption that due to the nudging from earlier, the influencing earlier, versus say timing them out, getting the parents, so on and so forth, that something would of course corrected, and it didn't. So again, we can look at this a number of ways, but that's sphere of influence versus sphere of authority. And in this case, just not doing either one of those, just assuming that something would happen and it just didn't. All right, so we're also going to see where sphere of influence and sphere of authority kind of runs through the rest of our day-to-day operations. And so we've all seen, say, the layers of leadership. I talked about this last time. Really, if you define it by the authority and influence you have, as the layers kind of go out, you have greater influence, you have greater authority in the business, which is really nice. And of course, it's just the reality behind being, say, a GM versus an AM versus a lead. But beyond that, we'll again see how this works within our business on any given day. And we've all seen this, heart. We've used this in our parks. Who is not familiar with heart? Go ahead and put it in the chat. I hear some tapping. All right, I'm going to assume that everyone's familiar with heart. All right, cool. That's great. So heart is what we use on the management level. Sky Zone introduced heat as an option. And so that's why I have the R, which is part of heart, in red, because we kind of pull that out of the equation when we think of heat. But I would actually argue to some degree that everybody can respond. And again, I get why we use heat with guest engagement at the team member level, because, well, if it's responding with monetary means like giving guest passes, refunds, that sort of thing, that does come down to managerial discretion. But when it's all said and done, I truly believe we can all use heart. And at the very least, yes, at the team member level, use heat. And so it's hearing, right? I hear what you're saying. I hear exactly what you're saying. I understand how that would have felt. If that were me, man, oh man, I get it. I apologize that happened. It should not have happened that way. And responding, if there's a way we could have done it, if there's a way in which we can have you come back out to enjoy our park once again and give us a chance to wow you, that would be incredible. And thank you so much for giving us your feedback, because without that feedback, we would not have known any different and we could not make the changes we needed to make, right? So that's heart. Hearing, empathizing, apologizing, responding, and thanking. Encapsulated in that entire response mechanism that we use, there's sphere of authority and there's sphere of influence. And with heat, for our team member, it's a high level of influence they have. And they can do that all day, every day, and they should. So please be role playing that with your team whenever you get a moment to, right? Using heart. Here's another area, guys. You guys talked about accountability being a real need in your parks. That was something that you guys put in the chat last go around. I did like a 2-part series with Michigan teams here some months ago, and this is part of that. I won't recap the whole thing. We'll do an actual standalone call just for that. But I kind of broke it down to accountability being 4 measures, 4 steps. Some leadership books would tell you 7. Some would say 3. In many cases, I could have made this 3. But I'm going to kind of come at this really quickly, guys. Really, the first step is setting clear and realistic expectations. That's the first thing we need to do. And if you don't understand your sphere of authority or your sphere of authority or influence, rather, you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be actually able to set clear or realistic expectations. The second thing is follow-up. I've heard a wise man say, fortune is in the follow-up, and it truly is. I think with accountability, we lose it often on these first 2 things. We don't give clear or realistic expectations, and we don't follow up, one or the other. And then it makes it impossible to get to giving feedback and then coaching, celebrating, or of course, if as needed, giving consequence. But again, through those 4 steps of accountability is sphere of influence and sphere of authority. Any questions about accountability? Awesome. All right. So we're going to move into this. Did you know that our court monitors have expectations? And these are just some of them. This is from the ops manual. So it's available to you guys. And again, I only put so many on here. I didn't put all of them just for sake of time, but there's another 5 or 6 different components. And so court monitors have expectations. We all know them. You're in a park every single day. And I'll just kind of run through them. So here they are. Ability to speak in front of groups. Ability to project voice and be heard in a loud environment. Ability to develop a rapport with guests and correct behavior when needed. Ability to interact with guests and facilitate games and activities to keep them engaged. Ability to handle and resolve guest complaints. Pay attention to the court always and be interactive with the guests. Have full knowledge of emergency procedures and assist in implementing them. Now, just looking at these, a great exercise for you and your team may just be to take a highlighter and go through 2 different colors and say, here's a sphere of influence, here's a sphere of authority. Because if you look across this, there's all sorts of areas where they have authority and areas where they actually just have influence. So with that being said, what area out of all these do you see authority being given to your court monitors?
The ability to interact with guests and facilitate games and activities.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Ability to handle and resolve guest complaints.
Yep.
At some point, they're making a decision there, right? They're making a decision.
Yep. Full knowledge. I guess full knowledge of emergency procedures and assisting in implementing them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What about influence? We could largely say the rest of them are influence, right?
Yeah. Speaking groups, project voice and heard in large and loud environment.
Yeah. Yeah. That court monitor who's more leaning than anything else, looking up at the ceiling, hanging out, within the 3-foot area with another court monitor in a 20,000 square foot building, not watching their courts. They are influencing, but just not in a good way, right? We know that. And so they influence every day and they have authority in certain areas. And if Ashley from Canton was on this call, I'd have her share about in Canton when she sort of had this light bulb movement or a light bulb moment, so to speak, when she realized that a big part of what they were working through with their court monitors just to get them going in the right direction. And actually, Cody, you may actually be able to speak to this because I think you were still part of Canton at the time, was, again, you didn't have the language necessarily of sphere of influence or sphere of authority, but you were able to articulate to your court monitors that they had a certain range delegated to them of authority, right? And they were able to do certain things that maybe they didn't know that they had, at their disposal to ensure that the courts were safe. Were you with the Canton team when that was being discussed?
Yeah, I was. Me and Ashley talked about it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. You care to share how that worked for you? Because there was a marked change within your court monitors just by recognizing that.
Yeah. So we told our court monitors that actually it came from you, Lance, when you had told us about it when we went over some of the court monitor training when we were doing the age separation. If somebody's not listening, it's kind of like a 3 strikes and you're out. Your court monitor can let people know, like, hey, you're not listening, so you're gonna have to be timed out from this area, for like the next half an hour. You cannot come back to this area for the next half an hour. And it really kind of just empowered our court monitors and made them more even more active because I hate to say it, but sometimes they just don't like certain kids because they're not listening. So maybe it makes them feel more empowered. It makes them feel better about like being able to time them out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for the share. Ways in which you can influence 3-lane sky slam. You have 3 basketballs and people aren't listening. You can pull basketballs off the ground, right? We do this stuff all the time where we step in and they're given some range of how do you control a court and how do you do it well, both verbally, with hand signals, so on and so forth, right? So that's court monitor expectations, and that's just really some of them. But don't you know, we also have lead expectations. Now, this was shared with the Michigan group some months ago. So they can cheat on this a little bit, but for others, you have leads, and yet we have expectations. This is not in our ops manual. I largely came up with these and then had the added voice of Bree and Braun and Wade and Michael to kind of give some greater emphasis on certain things. But I think this is true for all parks. And so if I can just get someone who is brave, that's willing to read through these, that would be awesome. Brave soul.
I'll do it.
All right, Cody.
Leads are standard bearers and have a desire to do the right thing. Proficient in all areas of the park. They are guest obsessed, safety focused. Provides a layer of management coverage through their shift. Positionally fill in as needed. They are flexible and nimble. If the MOD is walking the park clockwise, the lead is going counterclockwise. Always sees the park from the guest perspective and either communicates or creates change in response to guest friction points. Make sure the team is taken care of through a variety of motions, such as providing breaks, rotations, and having ongoing coaching conversations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, those are lead expectations. And of course, prerequisites for leads would be everything that was on the courts, the court monitor one, everything that's on the sales associate one, and every other area of our park positionally, right? Because they have to be proficient in all areas of the park. And so that's the lead expectations. And it's a lot, right? For them to actually be fulfilling the role to its fullest extent. So just for an exercise, we'll do this here. Here are the leads across the network. I kind of asked some of you where you're at with leads. I know that this morphs and changes through the year as things ebb and flow with school schedules, and it's summer versus winter. And so this is not a hard number, but these were the latest, greatest numbers I believe each of you gave to me. Now, there's no right or wrong whether you're at 5 leads or 10 leads, but it's a tell as to where you're at currently based on, well, the needs of your business, or even reproduction in the park from a leadership standpoint. Now, if you have a bunch of leads, it's not always to say that you're responsibly reproducing other leads, right? Or leaders within the organization, especially now that we have the expectations in front of us. These are the expectations. So take a look here. I know not every park's on the line. Don't think I have anyone from Canton, but Grand Rapids, 7. They just got their 7th back yesterday with Jordan joining back up with the group, coming back from school. Was chatting with him yesterday. So nice to have Jordan back in the mix there. We have 7 in Grand Rapids. Don't think I have Wisconsin on here at all, but that's 3 in Madison, 5 Milwaukee, Murfreesboro, 6, Shelby with 5. I think, Cody, you said you're going to be bringing up a 6, but let's just go with the 5 for right now. So for each park that's on the line, think of your park, look at this number, whether it's right or wrong. Let's hope it's right. You have 7 in Grand Rapids. I want you to think about that number and each of the names and the faces associated with those numbers, right? So think of the 7 in Grand Rapids there, Shannon, leads you have, all right? And I want every park to do that for the next moment or two, and then we'll move on, all right? So be thinking about those individuals. Fort Lauderdale, you have 6. Murfreesboro, 6. No right or wrong here, but that's what you have currently. So you have that number and you have those names and those faces. And we have these expectations. These are the expectations. With that being said, I want you to consider, say if you have 6 like you do in Fort Lauderdale or Murfreesboro, as a management team, be quick about it on the chat. Write how many of the 6, or the example could be 8, how many of them actually meet those expectations today? And here they are. Here's the expectations. Feel free to just put it in the chat box. Be rapid fire about it. Go with your gut. Is it 5 of 6? Is it 2 of 6? Keep at it. I'll let Jonathan back in the room. He got kicked out. Like I said, Zoom's been a little goofy. Hey, Jonathan, welcome back. Hey, Jonathan, you have 6 leads at your park. Did you know that?
Yes.
I'm not asking you to respond verbally, but if you can respond in the chat, how many of those 6, visualize them right now if you can, the 6 that you have, meet all these expectations? And just put it in the chat. Is it 5 of 6? Is it 1 of 6? Be honest. All right. Don't be asking just yet, Cody. Don't be asking about those 3. That's the leadership discussion. You're getting ahead of yourself here. So this is a great leadership conversation. I'm just showing you something you probably already do. But given those expectations, as I always say, if you walk as a leader, if you walk past a fallen standard, that becomes a new standard. We got to get to a point as an organization. If you say you have 6 leads or you have 10, well, first and foremost, if one person in the management team thinks 7 of the 10 have it down, someone else thinks 2 of the 10 have it down. And again, no one gave me that example. I'm just throwing that out there. We have a calibration issue. And it's a great time in a leadership sit down when you're having your meeting to say, hey, let's break out our leads. Let's see who we have, where they're at from a development standpoint. And the other point to that is, if you do have people who are not meeting the mark, again, I know for a lot of you, it's new to you to see these lead expectations. And so it's going to take a little while. But a month from now, if you still have those within your fold that aren't hitting that, guys, you're lowering your standards and it's a race to the bottom as an organization, right? And so we're going to do everything we can to have a bias towards coaching up versus coaching out. I'm a firm believer in that. I'm going to look to every way that I can exhaust myself with what I know that I can give to develop somebody, because I don't want to be on the other end to say I failed them. I definitely don't want that to be the case. I don't want that to be the case for you either. So we have the leadership expectations for our leads. This is what you're to do. And again, today, if you have 6 under you as leads go, and you guys are pretty calibrated and you realize 4 of the 6, they're rocking and rolling, the other 2 need some work, totally fine. But be willing in a month's time after doing all that coaching up to not necessarily coach out, but maybe it's a matter of taking away that varsity jacket. I used to do it as a GM many years ago. Take away that varsity jacket. Why? Because again, there's standards. We're trying to maintain a high level of excellence. It's not being heartless. It's just being real with where we're at. And again, it's a coaching environment with a high bias towards coaching up versus coaching out. Fair enough? So you can't see the screen, Jonathan? I'm sorry. There's your lead expectations. Feel free to add yours there. All right. So that's a lot, guys. I know we started a little late and we are going to be wrapping up here in the next handful of minutes, but that's a lot. Lead expectations. We talked a little bit about court monitoring, sphere of influence, sphere of authority. Go through the highlighter, who does what. Again, you're not going to stop in the middle of a Saturday at 2 o'clock and go, wow, we got a line out the door. Is that my sphere of authority or my sphere of influence? But we're doing this every day, guys. We are doing this every day, and being able to put a name on it and define it as such goes a long way. And when you start to realize that a lot of the workplace woes that we have, especially when it's people issues, is a response to somebody overstepping in an area that wasn't theirs to overstep in. Well, guys, that's how we reel it back in. That was your sphere of influence. It wasn't a decision for you to make. Or that was a decision for you to make, and instead you just kind of walked by the 2 people jumping at Sky Slam and you didn't say anything, right? You had the authority. You could have done something. You didn't. This will help you greatly if you use it like anything else. Again, the difference between the 83% versus, I believe, the 5%. So with lead expectations, we're going to move on to the next piece of the puzzle. Greeting every guest every time. Again, it comes down to, as a leader, if you walk past a fallen standard, it becomes a new standard. Sphere of influence, sphere of authority, greeting every guest every time. No excuses. We're going to do it every single time. And Evan from Fort Lauderdale, I believe you're on the line. And if you're able, can you just share, because you guys, we've all seen upticks in our numbers because we bought into this and we're doing it. But if you can expand on what you guys have been doing to sort of kind of get past that barrier that may have been there previously and just kind of share some of your success, that'd be awesome.
Sure. You mean more like the greeting or just like the court monitors in general?
Well, greeting every guest every time. Yeah. I mean, what have you been doing differently, you know, with your managers? I'm assuming it's brought up.
Yeah, sure.
Like
Of course.
huddles, things like that.
Yeah. What I do a lot of the times with my staff, I have them pretend to be the customers and come in and be greeted and with a smile. Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Sky Zone. And come in and not greeted. And how does it make them feel? And then every time there's like a big difference. I said, that's how the guest feels. So I make sure to role play a lot. Every Saturday I have a greeter. I have always someone watching the door, making sure there's the first thing they see is a smiling face, very feeling welcoming. It's just a really good start to the day. And the score is just going up. So it's working. So I'm going to keep doing it.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I apologize if I put you on the spot. I appreciate the share though. I know
Sure.
we try to reach out ahead of time, but hey,
Oh,
it's all
fine.
about participation. So thank you.
Of course. Yep.
Appreciate that. And again, you know, it's not just Evan, although they've done some great things. That's why I had him share. We're seeing that across the board. But again, if we just kind of write it off, if we just get too busy, if the lobby gets too full, if our cashiers, our sales associates have their head down, not head up, and we just kind of say, well, it didn't happen this time. Well, it's no different than saying, well, the waiver didn't happen this time. And again, I get it. Waiver and not having a waiver is a much, much bigger deal when it comes to an injury, so on and so forth, right? We have to get that waiver. But it's about behavior. It really is. It's about expectations and it's about standards each and every day. And if we just create an environment where we do it every single time. Yes, it got busy. The lobby's full. My greeter called off, whatever. By the time they get up to that cashier, that sales associate, they need to be greeting, right? And we can greet throughout the entire facility because we know when we do, every other number on that OSAT just takes a leap, right? It goes green on us. It's a good thing. So keep at it, guys. And again, thank you, Evan, for the share. I appreciate it.
Hey,
No problem.
Lance.
All right. Kind of coming around the end here, guys. There you go. What's stopping you? We talked a little bit about that. What's stopping you? Let's call it what it is. Often it's just a standard that we've let drop. We got to pick it back up again. And again, wrapping up here, guys, you guys have these amazing posters in your park. I see them in all the parks I'm in. I saw the one for manager in Shelby Township on Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday. And then yesterday I was in Grand Rapids. I saw it. I'm sure I'll see it today in Canton. But again, you guys have these posted throughout your park, your break room, your office for managers. And so it creates a standard. Here is the standard. Here's the expectation. And it removes all the fogginess. It removes all the blurriness around what you're supposed to look like when you show up to the job. And so, you know, I'm going to ask you, take a moment here to really consider. Don't need anybody to unmute yourselves, but just consider, did we just put this up on the walls and it just serves as a nice little thing we have in our office and a nice little thing that we have in our break room? And I get it. We just got them, but are we carrying through with this? Or are we just allowing the standards to drop, right? Because here's the standard. It's name tag. It's lanyard, right? So we know what we need to have for our team members. And sometimes it's just a hard conversation. They didn't show up today the way they should have. And if we go back to the top of the discussion, it's going to be a reoccurring theme. Leader of self is the first step. And so, yes, you didn't think it was part of your job as a leader, but it is. To get them looking the part when they show up to work, yeah, they have to look the part. And as a team, that's our jersey. That's how we look. That's how we dress for success. So please, dress code policy, manager's edition, all that good stuff, guys. That's our team is dressed for success. That's not an inferred, I hope they do it. All right. Last but not least, I'll leave you guys with this. What are you taking from this call today? Okay, what are you taking from this call today? And if I can get 2 people, one that's not Cody.
I was gonna answer too.
I want to hear first,
I-
please.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Jonathan, you go right ahead, baby boy. You go right ahead. But after that, I
Sorry.
want to hear.
I was just gonna say, I just wanted to add on to the greeting thing. I was gonna say, being at Sky Zone for 5 years, having that greeter at the front door, is a really crucial thing for the company, because when the customers come through that door, you're not just greeting them, you're also directing them and directing them to the right spot. So like if they have for a party, you direct them to the party, or if they're there for open jump, you direct them to open jump, and it really helps set the mood for the customer to be on a good positive mood when they come in, and make their not just our greeting over like score better, but our friendliness and everything like that. So it plays a big factor in a lot of our scores in our SMGs too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, thank you for the share.
Yep.
Some of you guys had some time to think. What is something you're taking from this call? Again, if it's just leadership theory, conceptual information, and you can't do anything with it, we will be the 83% and not the 5%.
Well, you said I couldn't answer, so.
Well, what do you got for me, Cody? What do you got?
So I'll definitely be taking the lead expectations. I already wanted to plan like a lead kind of like retraining, because I think some of our leads are lacking in some departments. They're all proficient in like every area, but there's just some things they could be better on, whether it be being up on courts to handle those difficult situations, so our court monitors don't necessarily have to. I know a lot of our court monitors like to lean up against the pads, and I called them all out at the team meeting, but I can't just be the only one. Our lead should be doing that day in and day out as well, every shift. So yeah, I definitely will bring that lead expectation.
Awesome. Absolutely. Yeah, the goal is not that they're perfect in all, say, 8 things. But like you said, right off the top, they're proficient in all those things. It is, however, to look for where there are sizable gaps in distance between one lead to the next lead, and not assuming that, well, it's okay to have a middle of the road lead. And by doing that, sort of having a diminished positional execution, right? There's just a diminishment there, and it's okay. And we made it okay somehow, some way, versus, hey, we need to really be aggressive to grow them and develop them into the lead we know they can be, because they may just be our next managers. Many times they are, right? So that's all part of bench planning, succession planning, so on and so forth, right? Thank you for that share. I appreciate it. Anyone else? Murfreesboro. Anybody from Murph?
I can say something from Murfreesboro. Yeah, I was gonna say your accountability slide, just because I know in Murfreesboro, across the management team, that is something that we are working on, and we have gotten better at it. I just think the accountability slide really helped look at it a different way with those points that you listed. So yeah, I think we'll for sure be taking that and putting that to use in our park.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's the thing that we can't get enough of is accountability. Management, in a nutshell, is getting work done through others. And it's, of course, dealing with different resources and driving results and all that good stuff too. But yeah, it's accountability. It's knowing what to do with really, in many cases, you've delegated a portion of your authority over to somebody else. And then you're following up with them, right? So I give the example often of, needing to clean a parking lot. Who doesn't have to clean their parking lot pretty much every day, right? And so it's sending someone outside. Here's some gloves. Here's a bag. Take the next 15 to 20 minutes. And if you can clean the southeast corner of the parking lot because it doesn't look great, and then come back and follow up with me. Right there, you gave clear expectations, right? Timing, all that good stuff. And then you actually built right into that the follow-up piece. That's 2 of the 4 things. And actually, you get really good at the actual feedback component, which is the 3rd part of that accountability. You'll do the coaching, the celebrating, and the giving consequence when needed. You'll do that automatically. So really, it's just about getting that locked down. So yeah, that's awesome. Really good. Anybody else? Don't be shy. Don't be shy. What are you bringing back with you?
I will speak up. Ebony just sent a screenshot of your lead expectations slide, and we want to use that on our next lead team meeting. Her mic just doesn't work, so she's not able to speak up. But yeah, she really liked that piece of it, and she just sent it in our manager chat, and we'll definitely be using that next Thursday on our team lead meeting. So thank you. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And if you need clarification on any of those, I mean, like the one where managers walking clockwise, lead, walking counterclockwise, that's really just speaking to, instead of like, holding each other's hand, it's really trying to see the other side of the business and being that extra set of eyes, right? We're developing them to see as we see, because it's a reproduction piece, right? And so that's a big part of it. And that's awesome that you're taking the lead piece with you. Very cool. All right. Anyone else before we close up? If you're too shy to talk, that's all right. To some degree, we'll get you talking on future calls. Please add in the chat what you're taking with you. That would be awesome. Type it out. Now everyone's thinking, well, gee, now I got to admit that I'm shy and I don't want to talk on this thing, right? So if I put it in the chat box. But if you can put it in the chat box, that would be phenomenal. All right. Well, excellent, guys. Thank you again. We are pushing and pressing against the 83%. Be thankful. I know I am, that there's even an outlet for us to be that 5%. That we see that there's leadership needed at every level, at least the development piece. And I hope that this is one part of many that we're trying to do on our end as Innovative Heights, to try to define, not only define that for you, but also create some tools, some resources so that you can develop your teams, at least from the ground up. And again, that's at all levels. I really see that we have to develop everybody from that team member level, day one, all the way through, versus just looking at that 20 or that 10, that 30%. But again, if we take it just as conceptual leadership theory, or you're just a passive participant, kind of in observing mode this entire time on these calls, it is just going to be leadership theory. And again, when you participate and you take this and you make it practical and you apply it in every day, managing shifts, you're going to see that not only is your shift going to really be transformed, but you yourself as a leader will be transformed just the same. So thank you, guys. Thank you for your time. And next call is going to be on 5/20/2022. That is going to be 2 Fridays from now. Topic TBD, to be decided. More on that to come. Nothing I'm going to send home with you or anything like that. I will talk more with you guys about your point A's for those that submitted those. Awesome. Some haven't yet. Please do. The point A will be something we talk about next time as we continue to have these discussions. Things will morph and change, but we will continue to use a lot of the basic things we talked about. Everything we're doing from here will build on those basics, so we'll come back to them from time to time. Thank you, guys. Any questions before we go? Rock and roll, guys. Take care. Thank you so much. Have an awesome weekend, a safe weekend. Keep those parks clean, safe, and fun. Thank you. You too, Lance. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance.
Thank you.
Adios, guys.